Everybody, I have some more media coming in here. I'm going to give them just one more minute and then we will get started. If you guys do have a question, if you want to raise your hand virtually for me, and then we will start.
Corey, you set for us?
Yes, we are all set. I was just letting a couple more media in here.
Okay.
So. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are so excited to announce our Chief Administrative Officer and General Manager, Karen Bryant, and our head coach, Curt Miller, together for the first time for our introductory media availability. So I'm going to kick it over to our General Manager, Karen Bryant, to kick us off. Karen, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm excited to be back in the W. As many of you know, I see some familiar faces and names. The W has been a first love of mine since the league launched. Started my journey in women's pro basketball 27 years ago this year, and I could not be more humbled, honored, excited to be back in the WNBA and to be doing it with an iconic franchise like the Sparks in a world-class city that I have fallen in love with over the last 18 months. Many of my family members, if you would have said that to them 20 years ago, they would have never believed you, but I have really enjoyed my time in LA the last year and a half and look forward to calling it home very soon. And I think equally importantly, so much of this journey and where I am in my career is who you're doing it alongside. And I could not be more thrilled to have my partner here, Curt Miller. Vanessa Shea, our president. I was actually intimately involved in the search, really excited about collaborating with Curt, Vanessa, and obviously Eric Holloman, our managing partner, and Magic Johnson and the rest of our ownership group. It's an exciting time for the Sparks. And again, I'm excited to be back and consider this a significant privilege for me to sort of add this to my time in women's sports and most importantly and most notably my time in the WNBA. I'm going to let Curt make an opening comment and then we'll open the floor. Thanks for joining us.
Again, Happy New Year, you guys. Thank you for joining us today. Echo a lot of what KB said. This journey for me coming to the Sparks was all about great people. And through the process of speaking with KB through the hiring process, we had so much aligned, so much of the same collaborative thinking and wanting to build this with great people and alongside of great people. So again, it feels like I've hit the ground running for a few months now. Really excited about today and some of the recent announcements about our staff, but so happy to be in LA, looking forward to upcoming free agency and then ultimately the 23 season.
Great. Thank you both, Karen and Curt. We are going to get started with questions. Just a reminder, if you could put your full name and your affiliation on your Zoom name, just so I can make sure I can call on you, that would be great. We'll get started with Tukni Nguyen from the LA Times, and then we'll go to Rashawn Haylock. Tukni, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for your time, Curt and Karen. It's good to meet you virtually. I guess I just want to start with you, Karen. Obviously, free agency starting in about 2.5 weeks with negotiations. What are going to be your top priorities in your new job as you head into this really critical free agency period?
Is it 2.5 weeks? I'm counting the minutes. I think as Curt said, we've hit the ground running. We obviously announced my role yesterday and our new staff today. Look, I personally have a learning curve, have a steep learning curve. It was not the intention when we started this process that I would end up in this role. That said, I accept it humbly and gracefully and could not be more excited about the experience and talent and knowledge that we have amongst this amazing staff that we're putting together. But yeah, we obviously have a lot of priorities. We have the most cap space in the league. We're excited to get going and have spent the last several weeks really drilling into our depth charts and the opportunities out there and unrestricted and restricted free agents and potential trade conversations, but we're going to be super active. Most of that obviously has been behind the scenes, but come the 11th and 21st, the Sparks are going to be really aggressively in the market. And this is a critical year for us. Curt and I are here to help lead a transformation on the basketball side of the organization. And we have a lot of work to do, but we're really excited and optimistic about kind of the foundation that we're going to build for sustainable success for the franchise on the court.
Just to follow up, if it wasn't the intention to have you end up as a general manager, how did you get into this job? How did that conversation kind of start?
Great question. So I think as many of you may know, after ownership group decided to transition away from Derek Fisher, we started the general manager search right away. Of course, Coach Williams finished out the season as head coach. So, those conversations actually began in earnest very quickly. And through the process, talked to a lot of candidates, vetted a lot of candidates. At the end of the season, when we decided to initiate the head coach search, in those conversations and through that process, as we narrowed down that list, and ultimately when we made the decision to hire Curt, through our conversations and getting to know each other, I've obviously had so much respect for him from afar, have watched the success he had in college in Indiana, and then of course with the Connecticut Sun. Very quickly, there was a bond that was built, and Curt mentioned this, but we really very quickly realized that there was a lot of alignment, and I think a really unique partnership in terms of how we were going to work together. And so as we continued through the process, we got to the end, and a conversation was brought up by ownership about me possibly stepping into that role. And Curt and I had a heart-to-heart conversation about it. I would not be sitting here today as the GM of the Sparks without his full support and confidence in my ability to add value to what he brings and the rest of our staff. So yeah, unexpected for me. I think ultimately unexpected for the organization. But as we sit here today as partners, I think we're both extremely thrilled and confident about our ability to collaborate and lead this organization going forward.
We'll go next question to Rashawn Haylock and then Sabrina Merchant. Rashawn, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Congrats, KB.
Thank you, Rashawn. Good to see you.
Good to see you. In terms of, without giving up too much of the game plan, obviously go a myriad of ways here during free agency, but what will that collaboration sort of look like between the two of you and I would imagine Eli as well and others who may be involved in the process?
Yeah, great question. I'll take that, and then I'd love to give Curt a chance to jump in here as well. I think I alluded to our conversations during the recruiting process with him, and as I said, really got to sort of know him and to really learn how open he is, how much he values collaboration and diversity of thought, as do I. And I think the other filter for us was building our organization with proven winners. And as we looked across the table at each other, just really felt like there was something special and unique here. But I think, my primary role, especially as I get up to speed in terms of the talent pool and player personnel and talent evaluations, is to facilitate strategic conversations, to make sure every voice in the room is heard and is valued, and to really make sure that when we make decisions, it's coming out of a process of extreme sort of thoroughness and discipline. So for me, I think what I really bring to this role is strategic thinking, listening skills, diversity of thought, skilled facilitation, strong negotiating experience, but I'm going to lean on our staff. And Eli Horowitz is going to be a critical kind of component to our staff. And I got to know him last year. He worked very closely with me during the trade deadline period, and his knowledge of the CBA, his knowledge of the talent across the league, and probably most importantly, his critical thinking and his just analytical skills brings another dimension to our staff. So when we sit in that war room, we've got one set up right next door here, the conversations are just, I'm inspired by them, because we're going to leave no stone unturned. And I think when we're aligned around a decision and are ready to execute, it will be with a tremendous amount of confidence. Curt, I'd love for you to jump in here.
The big word for me was trust through all the conversations with KB, Eli, and being a coach only and taking that dual hat off in this position with LA. There was incredible amount of trust that there's collaboration, there's preparation. And as we enter free agency, and the amount of conversations and the hours that we spend on Zooms with each other, on conference calls with each other, there's just an unbelievable alignment, and it all starts with trust. And then the belief in how I believe in roster construction from a head coach's perspective, and how we believe you win with great people. And I know it's a coach's cliche, but it's been a part of my fabric for a long, long time, back to the collegiate years, is that, you know, great teams, championship teams, are won in the locker room before they're won on the court. And there's true alignment of putting together an incredible locker room first that will then translate onto success on the court. And that then inevitably turns into sustained success, that you can have great teams year after year after year, which is ultimately the goal. So, you know, ultimately, KB and I are working tremendously together, and there's ultimate trust. You know, you don't always take a position as a head coach before a GM's hired, or back in the collegiate days, take a head coaching job without an AD in place. But through our conversations, I got so excited about having the opportunity to return to LA through these conversations with KB.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go next question to Sabrina, and then we'll go to John W. Davis. Sabrina, go ahead.
Hey, Coach and Karen, congratulations. Curt, I had a question for you specifically. Obviously, the Sparks haven't been as successful as they wanted to be over the last couple of seasons, but I'm curious what it was about the infrastructure that's already in place, talent pool that's already here, that drew you to want to come to Los Angeles.
You know, I know probably people are tired of hearing about it, but my experience in 2015, as I transitioned after 24 years at the Division I level into the pro game, and having the opportunity to coach here in 2015 under Brian Agler with the great leadership. We had Candace and NECA, Elena Beard and Christy Tolliver, and the list goes on with that team. My induction into the league, or my first year in the league, was such a special experience in LA, that I thought if the opportunity to ever return presented itself, it would be too good to pass up. It was a dream opportunity, an iconic franchise, a place that I recognize is a destination location for players, and can be a destination in free agency for players. So, you know, truly excited about being back. And it was that first year in 2015 and my first year in pro basketball that I realized how special LA, the franchise, the community, everything that goes along with being here as a Spark, really drew me back this offseason.
And then I know you've already announced 2 of your assistant coaches. I was wondering if there are any plans to use that third spot, that player coaching spot, as you guys, finish out this offseason.
You came in and out a little bit. I think you're asking about coaching staff.
Yes.
If I heard it right, we are still actively pursuing one more assistant coach. Really excited about the announcement early of some of the staff members. I'm bullish on believing that Chris Koklanis is one of the most talented assistant coaches in the league. He's run the defense for me the last few years incredibly successfully at Connecticut. Truly, respected around the league. And then to add a LA native and a coach that I worked not only alongside here in LA, but also the first 3 years in Connecticut, and Steve Smith, an incredible start to my coaching staff, but that we are actively continuing to have great conversations with numerous candidates for an additional assistant. Also today, if you haven't seen, we announced Nola Henry as our player development coach. As my quote about her mentions, we see people as players, but also coaches that have an it factor. And Nola Henry was tremendous in her first couple of years with me in Connecticut. She really helped with bench technology, a new feature in the WNBA where there's technology on the bench being able to be shared with other coaches and, more importantly, the players. And she was instrumental in Connecticut, allowing us to very productively use bench technology to part of our game plan. And I'm really excited about her addition also. So we're not done. We have some staff members to still hire, but I'm excited about our start.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go next question to John W. Davis and then Nick Hamilton. John, go ahead.
Good morning. Real quick question. How quickly do both of you feel like you can turn this around and not only make the playoffs, but compete for a championship?
How about we tell you in 30 days, John? Look, I'll say this. I'll answer that by saying, clearly we want to win, and this is a championship franchise. There's a legacy here. Curt and I and everybody associated with this team recognizes the expectations and the aspirations for the LA Sparks. That is crystal clear. And we took these positions with that in mind and have every intention of communicating and executing against an extremely bold vision. But we will be measured. We will be disciplined in our approach. We won't take shortcuts. And we are in this for sustained success. One of the things that really drew us to Curt very early in the process. You guys have done your research on him. It's well documented. He is a builder, and he is known for sustained success, not one-off successes. And he very quickly emerged as the right person for this role and to help lead the transformation of the Sparks, to really put us in position to have sustainable success. 5 finals appearances for the Sparks, 3 championships, most recent back-to-back. We know what we're here to do, and we're excited to get after it. But again, we will be disciplined. We will be prepared. We will be extremely strategic. And if and when we take risks, they'll be measured and with eyes wide open. But for us, it's really about process and preparation. And we're going to stay true to that, and we believe the outcomes will be there.
John, I'm excited to build. My track record from the collegiate level, 2 rebuilding years in Bowling Green, and then 9 straight 20+ win seasons, 8 straight divisional championships, 7 of those outright regular season championships in the MAC. Go to Indiana, 1 year rebuilding, and then in the second year equal the most wins in program history in that Big Ten school. Connecticut, same way. First year out of the playoffs, but put a lot of the foundation in place that's led to 6 straight playoff appearances in Connecticut, with the last 4 years being in the semifinals or finals. So we're not putting a timeline on how fast and how good we can be. But we won't cut corners to do it. We're going to do it with great people, and we're going to do it the right way. And the right way is then allows you to have sustained success. And I'm excited to be building again.
The reason I asked that is, and obviously it's not anything of what you guys have done, but for the last 2 years, the team hasn't made the playoffs. The organization hasn't made the playoffs. And so I just wonder, how patient maybe your fan base will be if the next year you don't make the playoffs and it's 3. It's not, you didn't make it for 3 straight years, but the organization as a whole didn't make it. So just wondering what type of, urgency it is to at least make that point and then kind of build from there.
Yeah, I think, John, it's the right question. It's the expected question. I think we have to trust in the process. I know our fans, and to some degree ownership, not making the playoffs is not acceptable here, clearly. And a change was made. And we are, again, very mindful of expectations. We share in those high aspirations for this franchise. And that said, we've had a lot of dialogue with Eric and ownership about the process and who we are and our intentions and plans for how we're going to approach this build. And they are fully on board with everything we've shared today in terms of the discipline. And there's no timeline, there's no clock on our ability to get back. Again, the primary filter is going to be the right people, the right way. And we believe that will lead us to the right path.
And as a coach, you want to be in an organization that has high expectations. That's where you desire to be.
All right, we'll go next question to Nick Hamilton and then Howard Magdahl. Nick, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you all for doing this. Wanted to ask you, talk about having high expectations, but also how imperative it is to build a culture. As we go around the league, you see other organizations like the Aces, the Storm, the Chicago Sky and a couple other organizations actually have a culture where they are able to build, as you all talked about, getting to the playoffs and then ultimately competing for a championship. But where does that lie for you as the new head coach, Coach Miller, as far as what you need to do to instill that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, culture creation is paramount at this level in this league. And it's what I look forward to each and every year. And it starts with the staff, and those announcements started today. Again, I know we're probably going to beat this to death, that we're going to do it with great people, and excited to start that. But it's then into the locker room through free agency, and we're not going to cut corners. We're not looking for, a tremendous move that may be only a one-hit wonder. So excited about building the culture. And for me, culture starts with preparation. That's always our first pillar. Preparation is the key behind everything that we do. But then I'm a big believer that championships are won in the locker room. And that's where we're going to start this culture creation.
And also too, Janae, NECA, obviously, or especially NECA being one of the pillars of the organization, obviously being free agents, but how are you able to build that bridge and that relationship in order to try to secure them to coming back? And also too, what makes you so confident that you are the coach that will be able to take this team to the next level?
Yeah, I'm excited about both NECA and Janae. Remember, minus Tara, I'm probably the only coach that's coached them both. So NECA in 2015, and then, my early tenure in Connecticut with Janae. So excited about, speaking with them in free agency. They're important pieces as we move forward. They're both so talented, but more importantly, there you go again, great leaders by example. They're tremendous in the locker room. Players around the league gravitate to them and will want to play with them. There's no better leader than NECA. So, it starts with her. And, I've had history with them. I've had history with the family. I know one of my strengths is putting players in position to be successful, and look forward to working with NECA and Janae on the court and putting them in position to be successful.
Thank you.
One of the advantages of me partnering with Curt and assuming this role is being around the franchise and around the team for the last 18 months. And in that time, as you might imagine, I've developed really strong relationships with NECA and Janae and all of our players who are returning. And so, we'll lean on those relationships heavily as we engage in discussions. But, during the season and shortly after, exit interviews, conversations about where we were in our search process. I mean, very quickly, as I said, Curt's name rose to the top, not only for me in ownership, but some of our core players.
All right, we'll go next question to Howard Megdal and then Andy from the Chicago Sun-Times. Howard, go ahead.
Thank you, KB and Curt. Great to see you both. Happy New Year. I'd love to drill down with a pair of questions for you, KB, if I could, about approach. One is, as you talk about having patience and looking for a longer term build, you're obviously doing it in the context of a team that doesn't have a first round pick this year. But obviously, in Seattle, we're so successful building around that #1 overall pick, Sue Bird. And I guess I just wonder, as you think about building a roster, how much you think it's necessary, especially at this moment where the salary cap is so tight and it's so difficult to bring in people on free agency, how much the draft factors in to what you're thinking about building.
Yeah, great question, Howard. Nice to see you again and chat. Yeah, it's important. I mean, you look at the history and you look at sort of the path that teams have to championship and the finals, and top draft picks is a critical piece. So we're super mindful of that. We are obviously keenly aware of our current position in the draft. There's lots of dialogue about opportunities for us to maximize that position. It is what it is, and we'll make the most of it. I mean, one of the things that really excites me about Curt and my ability to really lean on him and the rest of our staff as we make these decisions, not only in free agency, but as we prepare for the draft in April, is his draft success. taking players like Heidemann and Carrington in the second round, Bree Jones as a late first round pick. I mean, he knows talent. And regardless of where we're in the draft this year, next year, and beyond, I have every confidence that our staff is going to evaluate talent in a way that's going to give us an edge to use the position we have to make our teams better.
And related to that, a strength of Curt's has also been his understanding and ability to use analytics. Obviously, hiring Eli is another nod toward that as well. I just wonder how much that is an additional point of emphasis in the group you're putting together here, vis-a-vis, what it has been over the last few years for LA.
Yeah, that has been a real theme. It was a theme during the process of conversation with not only head coaching candidates, but general manager candidates. I mean, as I said at the outset, I've been doing this for 27 years, which means I'm old. So technology still scares me. But, we've already talked about what Eli brings to the table and Nola Henry. I mean, I was really struck by our conversations with Curt and how much Connecticut used bench technology and technology in general. So we have already made mammoth strides in the Sparks organization in terms of the infrastructure and analytics kind of framework that we're setting up and are already using compared to where the organization was this time a year ago. So innovation, technology, analytics will be center to everything we do here.
Thank you both.
All right, we'll go next question to Annie from the Chicago Sun-Times, and then we'll go to Mark Schindler. Annie, go ahead.
Hey guys, how you both doing? Curt, it's
Doing
good to
well.
see you. I haven't seen you since the summer. Over the last couple of years, the Sparks have lost significant free agents, and I none more significant than Candace. Under the assumption that she is back in 2023, how can you guys gauge the priority you'll put on selling her on a return to the franchise that she helped build?
I mean, clearly Candace's relationship with this city, this franchise is well known. And, we are as keenly interested as any party as to what Candace may decide she wants to do. And when the time is right, look forward to paying attention to that and engaging in conversations if the opportunity presents itself. But clearly we're not in a position to do that and have had no dialogue, and we will be sort of anxiously waiting to see what comes out of her camp and what she's thinking. But clearly the relationship that Candace Parker has with the Los Angeles Sparks is special. And there's a lot of success there and a lot of rich history. She's among a long list of players who have worn this uniform, who mean a lot to this franchise and mean a lot to this city and mean a lot to our game. That will be duly noted by all of us here.
Curt, I don't know if you have anything to add, just given, like you mentioned, your experience coaching her in 2015.
Yeah, in general, 2015 really impacted me as I started my journey in this league, and a big piece of the reason why I've come back to LA. With that said, not uncomfortable talking about great players around this league that aren't currently under contract with us. And as free agency starts for those players on the 21st, look forward to some tremendous conversations and echo a lot of what KB said. But we'll wait till the 21st, Annie.
Okay, I'll check back.
Okay.
All right, we do have time for a couple more questions. I'm trying to get through everyone, so appreciate your patience. We'll go to Mark Schindler and then Jackie Powell after that. Mark, go ahead.
First of all, great to see you both. Hope the holidays have treated you well. Karen, I wanted to ask a follow-up to something that you mentioned. Obviously, you've worked a ton on the business side after transitioning out from Seattle, and you mentioned kind of getting back into like evaluations and diving back into that. What is that process like for you, into really digging deep into basketball again and getting that front of mind?
Rusty, learning curve, lots of late nights, lots of coaching sessions. I have a great coach. So I'll tell you, I have a learning curve here. I have a tremendous confidence. Again, I wouldn't have accepted this responsibility if not for the people around me, and they're gonna make me better. And I'm energized by the opportunity. It will be a challenge. It will be a stretch opportunity for me. But at this stage of my career, I want to make sure I'm continuing to challenge myself and grow and develop new skills. And I have so much love for the game. So to think about sort of where I am in my career and come back to sort of where I started, I think as many of you know, I started in pro women's basketball with the Seattle Reign of the American Basketball League, and within 18 months assumed the general manager position there at the age of 30 years old. So, 25 years ago, I held this very same title. And I'm excited to be back and with this group of people, but I've got a lot of homework, leaning a lot, as I said, on the staff, particularly Eli, to pull data together and, just lots of conversation, creating our depth charts, our war room in terms of how we prepare. But I'm confident that what I bring to our process and our preparation will be accretive to the talent evaluation and player personnel knowledge that our staff has. But I'm excited to get after it again, and I could not be more energized.
Awesome.
Mark, I have to jump in here because
Sure.
KB's energy to attack this role has been top notch. We're never off the clock, and her passion for the Sparks, but her passion to build this and be in this role has been second to none. I thought I had a strong work ethic. I mean, I get messages from KB all day. And then I'm a morning person back in Indiana a lot in the off season. So I'm texting her at 3 a.m. her time, and she's answering me. And I'm still getting texts at midnight, my time. And it's just been an unbelievable partnership. But her passion, how talented is, she's way too humble in talking about her learning curve, because she is on top of this and she understands this league. And most importantly, she wins. And she knows how to put winning teams together. And so she's way too humble. But her passion for this has been unbelievable.
Awesome.
I thank you, Curt. I'm humbled by that. I think the last thing I'd say, I think, my tenure with the Storm is I'm most known for sort of my roles on the business side of the operation. But, I hired Ann Donovan, I hired Brian Agler, and now I've hired Curt Miller. So I know how to pick them and have a track record winning championships with coaches. And I also know, my strengths and my limitations. So I think, again, you'll hear it often, but the collaboration and the partnership here is what makes us greater than the sum of our parts. And I couldn't be more excited to be in this with Curt Miller.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, we'll go next question to Jackie Powell, and then we'll go to Edwin Garcia. Jackie, go ahead.
Hi, all. Thanks so much for taking the time. Karen, first for you, I'm curious if you can take me through the decision tree you went through to expand the front office in the way that you did. And if you can explain how the caliber of investment across the league in the front offices has changed the most since you've been involved in this league.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the decision to recognize, and this was probably one of the quickest, easiest decisions that I made alongside ownership, is to split the role. I think you look at sort of where the league is going and the stressors and the skill sets and the time and energy, physical, emotional, mental focus that goes into being a championship caliber head coach in the WNBA and a championship caliber general manager in the WNBA. And I think we have deep appreciation for the skill sets and the partnership that can and should emerge from a collaboration between a head coach and a general manager. And so very early, that was the first of the decisions in the decision tree. And as I talked about earlier, started the GM process first. There isn't a sort of natural pipeline for general managers yet in this league. Yep. And so, we vetted a lot of candidates, talked to a lot of different people. We're still in that process when the end of the season came, and we decided to start a search for a new head coach. And so very early on in the coaching search, started having conversations with coaching candidates about the GM role and the GM pipeline. And as Curt and I got more serious in our conversations, that's sort of where the decision tree and the process started to focus on, what kind of partnership we could build together. And very quickly, I think we aligned around, this is exactly where we wanted to be for this point in time for the LA Sparks.
And to follow up before I ask Curt something, what did you learn in that process about what the GMing pipeline looks like right now in the WNBA?
Just innovation, hustlers. I have so much respect for the GM roster in the WNBA. Have known many of them for a long time. Some of them are newer. I look at sort of who I'm stacked up against and have a tremendous amount of humility around the caliber of general managers. Just the way the CBA has evolved, even in the time that I've been out of the league, the sophistication, the margin between good, better, and best in the WNBA. So I think sort of what encouraged me about learning through the process is that I have confidence in sort of some of the skill sets that I bring and my business acumen and my strategic approach and my decision-making process, my understanding of risk management, my negotiating skills. I think all of those are really important to being an effective GM. And even though I've been out of the game and do have a learning curve in terms of the talent evaluation and pipeline, that's where I really lean on one of the best in the league right here in Curt.
And Curt, for you, I'm curious if you can describe how different this might be for you now that you don't yourself have to be pushing all of the levers, and how you imagine your day-to-day changes from what you were doing in Connecticut.
Yeah, my experience in the WNBA, Jackie, has been interesting. I took the head coaching job in Connecticut without the GM role and walked into an incredible situation to work with Chris Sienko, and we were so aligned. And then his resignation led the opportunity to wear the dual hat. And it was before the CBA, the recent signed CBA. And the GM role wasn't as difficult, frankly, when I first took on the dual role. After the CBA, the role of the GM has taken on a whole new angle, and it is a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the trend. It seems like just a few months ago, we still had half the league nearly as, half the league wearing the dual hat of GM and head coach. And now I think we're down to James maybe only as the dual hat GM head coach left. So you really see the trend starting that the GM role is much more complex, much more difficult than it once was, and it is a full-time job. Those conversations and with players, during my experience in Connecticut, when I put my GM hat on, those conversations were at times different than when I had my head coaching hat on. And that is confusing at times to players, that the same person is having different types of conversations. Coaches want to win now. They're judged on the now. GMs are constantly trying to build for a championship, but also sustainability for the franchise. And so it was a difficult challenge, and one when this offseason humbly was reached out to by numerous franchises. To have an opportunity to just concentrate on the coaching was very intriguing to me again, and looking forward to it. And the trust that I felt from KB and from above, that the collaboration that would continue despite not being the dual hat would be there. They understand that while I may not be picking the ingredients anymore, I still got to cook. As the head coach, I'm cooking, but they understand that I'm cooking with the ingredients that GMs essentially ultimately have to choose. And so that collaboration is so important. And I feel that trust and the alignment that we have right now in LA.
All righty,
Thank
we have time for two more questions. We're going to go to Edwin Garcia next, and then we'll close out with Brianne Ingram. Edwin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for meeting with us. I'm Curt and Karen. My question is for Curt here. With free agency upon us, obviously, as you said, you're not necessarily making the selections, but from what you saw from the 2002 Sparks, what was lacking that left them out of the playoffs? And how can both of you ensure that doesn't happen again in 2023?
Yeah, again, LA was right there in the playoff picture. Obviously stumbled a little bit down the stretch over those last 10 games, could have easily been a playoff team. When you prepared against LA last year, you talked about first and foremost their defense. And again, everything schemed with NECA. And when you prepared against them, and NECA was the centerpiece of what they did, but talented pieces. But ultimately for me, build the culture, build it with great people, come together in a locker room and find that collective goal. And are we all rowing in the same direction, fighting for the same goals? And playoffs take care of itself. Winning and losing take care of itself. If you dedicate yourself to the process and enjoy the process. My big catchphrase throughout my head coaching career is master the monotony. If you master the monotony of the day to day and you do the right things and you prepare the right way, winning and losing takes care of itself. Playoffs take care of itself. But you've got to grind every single day. You've got to prepare like a champion. And that's the culture we'll create here. That's the culture I'm excited to build again. And again, we won't talk about long-term in terms of the playoffs if you go to work each and every day to do the process and do the little things. Again, winning and losing will take care of itself.
All righty, we'll go last question to Brian Ingram. Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Karen. Hey, Coach. So, Coach, this is for you. So, one of the things that you emphasized when you were hired was the development of players. And previously, you developed players such as, of course, Jonquel Jones and Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones. So, and I know you're still constructing this roster, but how do you plan to develop the younger players here in LA while under your leadership?
Yeah, great question. First, like a lot of shine always gets put on the head coach in development, and it's so much more. First, it's players' commitment to grow themselves. And when you look at the Connecticut roster through the years, it was JJ's commitment to go from a role player off the bench, 6-man, to most improved to an MVP. The lowest drafted MVP in league history. Brianna Jones, her commitment to stay ready. It did not happen overnight for her. She was behind a group of talented post players, ultimately took an injury or two to really allow the door to break open for her. But to her credit, she stayed ready. And you just had there's story after story throughout the WNBA of players, taking a big part of development. And then it's the staff around you. I've been very, very fortunate to work alongside of great assistant coaches. And, today we just got to announce who I think is the best in the league, and Chris Koklanis, and the best teacher of the game through film that I've ever been around, let alone on the court. And he was the voice of our defense the last couple of years. And you saw the defensive success in Connecticut from the rankings to the individual defensive players. It's staff that helps development. So I look forward to that as our roster ultimately plays out as we go into the 23 season. We will work very hard in player development. That's both on the court, that's off the court, that's through film. But we have to surround ourselves with players that are willing to work to get better, and then continuing to put together an elite staff that is committed to developing players. Not always easy, because these players will then go overseas for 6 months a lot of the time. But our commitment will be behind the scenes in player development, but it is a holistic viewpoint. It is not just me. It is our team that really helps player development.
Great. Thank you, Coach. I'm now going to turn it over to Karen for some closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, first of all, thank you all for being here today. We looked forward to this opportunity with a lot of anticipation and excitement behind the scenes. So thrilled to see all of you, some new faces, some familiar faces. We look forward to getting started. The countdown is on to free agency. We're working hard behind the scenes and look forward to getting after it in the next few days. But thanks again for your time. Appreciate your interest in the WNBA and the LA Sparks specifically. You're an important part of continuing to grow the league and momentum for the league, obviously coming off a great season last year across the board. And again, I couldn't be more humbled and excited and energized to be back with the WNBA franchise, and this one specifically alongside Curt Miller. I'd be remiss, I should have started by just echoing what so many of us have said over the last several weeks about having Brittany Griner back in the WNBA. I know the relief that was felt around the country when we all realized she was on her way home. So BG, we're excited to have you back, your family, and we can't wait to host you on opening night at crypto.com arena. So thrilled that resolution came out the way that it did, and such a heartfelt effort by so many across the league, and certainly President Biden's administration to bring BG back home to the WNBA. With that, I'll allow Curt to have a closing comment, and just again, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, just quickly again, echo the support. There's so many on this Zoom right now that help grow our game more than you'll ever know. And we have so much gratitude. And while we have to be asked the tough questions at times, your commitment to cover the league is tremendous and is helping our game grow. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here today, and thank you for helping grow our game.
Great. Thank you both so much. And thank you to all of our media. Like both Karen and Curt said, we're really looking forward to working with you throughout this season and the upcoming free agency period. If you need anything at all from us, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we appreciate all that you do. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Happy New Year. Thanks all.